Hi, I'm Joe Walensky, Writers UA, and I am visiting today with Neil Perlin, a longtime help author, developer, contractor, consultant. Hello, Neil. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Joe. How are you?
Oh, very good. Where are you at today?
Back in my office in Boston after a quick run in and out of LavaCon.
All right, and I'm in my Seattle office. So I wanted to talk to you today about some things related to your new book. So Neil has a new book out, and that is, let me get the name right. Advanced and Unfamiliar Features in Madcap Flare 9. What does that do? So that's uh, pretty detailed title. So what's up with this book? Where did the idea for this come from?
Well, the idea had been gestating for several years because I've been working with Flare, teaching Flare since I think 2006, since version one. And what I found was that there were a lot of questions that people asked, sometimes about features that were just unfamiliar, but sometimes about features that were unfamiliar and advanced that people just hadn't been exposed to before, going all the way back to things like mediums and recently things like HTML5. So over the years, I'd kept a fairly detailed log of the questions I was getting and finally just put everything down in the form of a book last year for Flare 8 and then updated it this year for 9.
All right, great. Well, yeah, I know how much work's involved there, and so I did get the print version of that. There's also the EPUB version of the book, and that's actually what I have in front of me on the desktop right now. So it was the EPUB. Let's see, so the book, the print version was self-published. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, everything was self published. It turns out that if anybody watching this is an aspiring author, Amazon runs a site called CreateSpace. And what you can do is feed a PDF into the CreateSpace site. And there are utilities to help you design the cover, design the binding, design the layout, proof the whole thing. And then when you're done, you can publish it. And it showed up on Amazon 4 hours later. But there's also a lead in to another Amazon site called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing,
Right.
which
I'm
takes the
familiar with
feed
that.
directly out of CreateSpace. And it works pretty well, aside from a few surprising glitches, like it doesn't like bullets for some reason. But aside from that, it's very easy to do, and I recommend it highly.
All right, good. Well, that's good information to have. I want to talk about a few specific areas of the book. Um, there's some things that I think are at least particular interest to me and maybe to others as well. So one of the sections that I'm looking at right now in the EPUB is on HTML5 output, and obviously that's a technology that more and more people and organizations are using. What is it specifically related to Flare that you're uh, pulling out in this particular publication?
Well, it's there for several reasons. Until recently, the default output format in Flare was web help, which most people understood. But in recent releases, they've changed the default output to HTML5. And one of the things I find is that people have heard the term, but they're not really sure what it is. So I spend a lot of time in the class, probably about 15 minutes, which is quite a bit for one subsection. But I spend that much time explaining what it is and really focusing on three issues. One is simply the fact that it's the newest and greatest, which is just helpful in general. Second thing is that for people who are looking to go mobile, one of the newest outputs for mobile is the so-called hybrid mode, which is slowly going to supplant native mode. And interestingly, hybrid mode is based on HTML5 and CSS3, along with some other things. So if you generate HTML5 output in Flare, it's not mobile. But if you look under the hood at the code, a lot of the codes that you'd need to make this mobile are there already. So, in other words, it's sort of a semi short step to hybrid mobile app output. And the third reason, which is probably of the most immediate concern and which people really haven't thought about, is strategy. Because one of the problems that's plagued us for years, especially since Google came along with spiders and crawlers, is that the web help output actually blocks a web crawler. A web crawler can find a help system that you put on an external facing server, but the problem is it can't get past the index topic. It's like being given the key to the world's greatest museum, but finding out that you can't get past the foyer. So one of the things that people have trouble is figuring out, well, who cares? And one of the arguments that I make, and that I always ask in class, if you need help about a subject, how many of you go to Google? And usually about two-thirds of the class raises their hand somewhat sheepishly. And I point out that if your company's information isn't an HTML5 format, it's not going to show up on Google. And or if it shows up at all, it's going to show up way down the search hit list. And what's going to be showing up above you is stuff that might have been put together by a competitor, by a disgruntled customer, or somebody, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not you.
Right.
And in effect, you're what somebody doing with somebody, and I can't remember who said this, has described as giving up the expert space. But if you go to HTML5 and put it on an external facing server, your stuff will show up. So I find that the concept actually gets through pretty easily. But what's more difficult is the strategic implications.
Sure. Yeah.
For years, yep,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and yeah, I think yeah, everything that you mentioned there, I think is really important. The last thing that you added in there is something a lot of people don't think about is your information has to be on a public facing server. So if if all your information is siloed and installed locally, or if it's on your website but it's behind firewalls or other security issues, then Google's not going to be able to find that. And so a lot of organizations end up using tools like Flare to for the single sourcing purposes, which helps you then with that process because you can have mirror content. You can still have your locally installed version, but you can have a version that's on that public facing server. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's definitely a good direction for a lot of people to be looking at.
Yep.
No, oh, did you have another comment related to that?
Well, I was just going to make one quick comment that every time I bring up the issue of the all of a sudden content having a strategic element that falls in part on the doc group. I find that a lot of people really haven't thought about content or tech com as a strategic asset in their company. So, in effect, not only does this have a strategic impact, but it's also sort of changing how people in doc groups tend to think about what they do.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's definitely something that we all need to think about so that we can improve our visibility in our organizations.
Yep.
Another topic, just a couple of things I want to touch on briefly. Let's see, you had a section on using mediums, and that's not something personally that I had ever used in a project. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that and why that was included here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The Flair's use of mediums for style sheets really falls out of the World Wide Web Consortium's media types technology or standard. And I find that a lot of people don't really understand what it is at first, but they grab the explanation pretty quickly because all it says really is in this age of single sourcing, if we want to output some content online and some content on paper in print or in PDF, which might be printed, one of the things we'll do is generate the online content, perhaps with a blue heading one, let's say, but when we print, we want black. So normally you'd have to do this with by calling two style sheets, which certainly works. People have done this for years, but it's very inefficient because basically you've got two style sheets or multiple style sheets that are largely similar, except for a few differences like blue versus black for head one. So rather than maintaining multiple style sheets for the sake of a few differing features, what you can do is have one style sheet and define exceptions. In other words, head one will always be blue except for, say, hard copy for print. And print is
Okay.
an output medium. So by doing that, you can control multiple output formats or the format of multiple outputs off a single style sheet. And it is a tremendously powerful tool. And I find that most people who are in a Flair class or my consulting clients aren't familiar with it. But as soon as I describe it, I can see the light go on because they instantly realize how useful this could be.
All right, great. Another good area to look into. And then let's see, the final item, specific item I wanted to look at. Let's see, section in your book, which is now I'm wait, there it is. Adding a real TOC and index to PDF output, which is something I'm always interested in because it, PDF is ubiquitous, but I would say that 90 some percent of all of the documentation that's put out in PDF is basically just a dumb dump of to the PDF format and doesn't include any any richer features to make that information more interactive. So I was interested in this section. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Flair is a really powerful PDF output tool. One of the problems with generating normal PDF output is that when you generate it, you get this list on the left that looks like a table of contents, but it's really not. What it is a list of the bookmarks. So if you're reading the PDF online, that's fine. That's all you need, or maybe all you need. The problem is that when you go to print that, the bookmark list, the pseudo table of contents, doesn't come across. So what you're left with is really just one PDF file. So one of the things that we want to do is add richer navigation to the printed output, like a table of contents, an index, and even beyond that, table of figures, table of tables, table of other elements, whatever those might be. And there's a way to do it in Flair, which is somewhat counterintuitive, but it works like a charm. And it's incredibly simple to do because the reason it's counterintuitive is that what you do is you create your standard table of contents, the FLTOC in Flair, and that's the online table of contents. But what you have to do is generate the print table of contents from that. The way you do that is you create a new topic, standard topic, but instead of being based on the normal topic template, it's based on a table of contents template. And what that table of contents template essentially does is it goes out and captures the online table of contents. And then you take that topic, that table of contents topic, and you physically drag it into the online table of contents. So it sounds like you have nesting tables of contents,
Mm-hmm.
which in effect you do. But what happens is that because the print output is controlled by the table of contents, the topics to be included and the order in which they're being included are controlled by the table of contents. What happens is you put this table of contents topic at the top of the regular table of contents and you print that. And what it does is it grabs the online table of contents and turns it into a print table of contents with page numbers, with live links, and it works like a charm. And everyone always finds this kind of amazing the first time they see it because it is somewhat counterintuitive. But that model of creating a topic to act as a container for a non-standard type of content, like a table of contents, index, table of figures, etc., works like a charm. And once you get used to the idea, which takes about a minute to understand and about 30 seconds to do, you can generate full size printed books a la PDF with table of contents, etc. You can also use the same model to add very colorful, highly designed cover pages, title pages, in front of the table of contents. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Madcap is turning Flair into sort of a quasi publishing tool for print, for PDF, as well as online. And as I say, the concept of a table of contents within a table of contents is unfamiliar to almost everyone I've shown this to. But as soon as I show it and they understand how it works, they're off and running. It's a very nice feature.
Okay, excellent. Well, so that I think provides a good preview of some of the information that is in Neil's book. So you might want to check that out. Either get the printed version or the EPUB, or maybe both. Thanks, Neil, for being part of this discussion.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Bye bye.